And we're live to review the audio episode, Solitary. So before I ask Jeff what he thinks about it, I'll just show the outline of the sort of like the intro bit. There we go. I'll just nudge it in a bit more. Yeah, it's not as sharp as it could be, folks, because I didn't want to disassemble the CD box in order to make it closer to the scanner, but there you go. I'll let Jeff have a look at that.
I disagree with the description.
Oh, which part?
The last line. It wasn't that terrifying.
Yes, that is a bit... Yes, that final sentence is a bit uninspired and a bit... Right. So what did you think of the... first of all, Jeff, I'll ask this. Has Nigel Fairs done any of the Doctor Who's that you've heard?
I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the name. But
Okay.
he could have, I don't know.
Because I know that you've been listening to... What do they call them? The Companion Chronicles?
There is a series called Companion Chronicles, yeah.
And you've heard a few, right? Okay. Because you're more familiar with this format than I am. So I'll see what we do. Go. Okay. What are your initial thoughts on the episode?
It's not as good as the last one we listened to. I would say that the beginning, I think I said this at the time or like before we started the second listening of it, that the storytelling choice is one that can be good in terms of where you start with a character who's unsure of what's happened and is trying to piece together, that particular plot device can be a good one if it's done well. And this one started out with some promise, but I think it was let down by the ultimate reveal not really being that interesting to me. That there's some alien race that is, not exactly cloning people, but sort of like living as them or something, Yeah. I don't know. It's something that maybe they could have, if they introduced it and they explored it in another story, some a kind of a continuing battle with these guys or something. Maybe they could have turned it into something more interesting. But as it was, it just sort of is a bit of a letdown as a payoff. It's kind of like, oh, here's what's really been happening, and now we've stopped them. So it's kind of like once you introduce the ultimate concept of what's going on, and then you end it so quickly after that it's kind of like lame.
Yeah, it also is like... So it means all the insights into Villa are worthless a little bit, and it's sort of
yeah. It's like it's all leading to this, and then it's kind of like a big never mind.
Yeah. And I found the middle of it confusing.
Yeah, it was confusing.
Especially when it's audio and they're having sort of like flashbacks, or got
the other actor. I'm not going to say he was bad. I don't think he was bad, but he was just nondescript, is the phrase or word that comes to mind.
Yes.
He just he just wasn't a very strong presence, so it just kind of
Yep.
that was a little bit of a weakness too, I think.
Yeah,
Because
I mean,
it kind of made you feel like, you know, Villa's getting this good opportunity, you know, or you know, the actor is getting this good opportunity to you know, give Villa lots of meaty stuff to do, but then he doesn't really have good interactions, you know, good something to play off of that gives him a chance to really, I don't know, utilize it well. I don't know exactly how to put that, but
I think with these two Anders is if you're going to have two people in it, you got to have two, like the main cast, like the first one.
yeah, I think, you know, you mentioned the Companion Chronicles of Doctor Who. Obviously, there's several of those where they have a second actor that's not a main character.
Yeah.
But it's usually like a stronger villain character of some kind.
Right.
And when you do that, then at least you have sort of a, you know, if as long as you, and in some cases, like there was one was Polly,
Yeah.
companion from the first and second Doctor, who she actually does the voice of the villain too. So it's her being like the monster with her voice altered, and so that was pretty cool. So you know, there's ways you can do that that are more interesting, but
I'm just having a look at the.
so I didn't think this was bad. It just it started out pretty well, and then yes, it was kind of confusing. I thought it was a little bit too much of the kind of weirdness with you know, the trying to do the effects with like the voices, not exactly an echo, but like this sort of you know, altered voice effects when it was like, you know, doing the flashbacks like you said. And it just it was a bit of a letdown. So I would say not terrible, but not great, just sort of somewhere in between.
I mean, I would actually. In terms of enjoyability, on first listening to it, this might be my least favorite Blake 7 story. Because it's like I don't care if this like second guy that's involved, and even though I like the way the Villa characters performed, and it's sort of dragged, it's like I said with this format, the next one is the late Gareth Thomas and Paul Darrow are in the next one. So basically, you've got a load of scenes between those two, and that's great. That's like the heart of like proper Blake 7, isn't it? Blake.
Yeah, it sounds promising if the you know, if the story's good.
And that one's written
especially
by
the dialogue, because the dialogue really kind of carries it.
Yeah,
for the most part. So
I think you may have heard of this guy, Peter Angelides. Has he done Doctor Who stuff?
maybe.
Right. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. Peter Angelides, I suppose.
I don't either.
Right.
Sounds like it could be either a Spanish name or a Greek name, and how you pronounce it would depend on which one.
So yeah, what lost me in this was when it's that thing of,
oh man, sorry, I just saw a really impressive touchdown catch. Go ahead.
oh, I thought you were okay. One of the things that confused me about this was, and I wasn't paying like 100% concentration to it, like total, like driving a racing car, like proper concert, because that's what's required for this. Like, because you have a situation where he's talking to Nyron, and in these memories, Nyron is also in these memories, and you have to sort of try and work out, well, is this a flashback? Is he talking now? Things like that. Them not. There's just like I got the impression of, oh, there's bits I would miss, and that I would have to listen I mean, I've not listened to it again, but you see, the thing is, because of the ending, I'm like, well, I don't want to listen to it again because it's all not relevant, because it's been made, because it's the memories of somebody else. And it could have been made more touching, I suppose, with this aspect of this person who didn't know who they were. I mean, like, initially it was going down that route, but I think I think if they could have put more of an emotional spin on the story, and I don't know. It's tricky with the format though, where
Yeah. I mean, there's one credited writer. If he indeed was responsible for writing all of it, then I think he may have had a hard time making up his mind where he wanted to take the story.
yeah,
And if there were multiple people in the creation, and then maybe there was too much outside input. If it wasn't just a solo writer, because it did seem, that it just got a little all over the place there. So
yeah. So we've got the jungle world, and then we've got this stuff with the factory, and right. Well, what we can do is we've got this. We've got the back of it here, and then I'll show you the notes. There we go. I don't know if any of these names, some of these names should like stick out to you. Maybe just.
Lisa Bowerman, I've heard before. Justin Richards and Nicholas Briggs.
Yep.
I know all those names. Lisa Bowerman's been both a director on Doctor Who stories as well as an actor.
Yeah.
In fact, she may have even been in one of the Blake 7 audios we listened to before. I can't remember.
Maybe. Right then.
Justin Richards, I remember, was the writer of at least one of the previous Blake 7s we listened to.
I think he may have been involved with Doctor Who magazine as well. Let's out. Bowerman. Right then, here we go. Right, I mean, when I finished watching Caprica, if there had been a Caprica novel, like if like the story had been carried on with novels, I would have read, or at least started. I would have bought at least the Caprica novel. But no one's like done any novels of Cap. Like continuing the story of, it was the prequel to Battlestar Galactica, Caprica, and the only one that was made was something called Caprica Blows, which was like somebody selling like an ebook about how bad they thought Caprica was. There you go, Jeff.
He wrote a book about how bad something else was?
Yes, called Caprica Blows. It was weird.
Hey, if you can sell it, more power to you.
He looks exactly like Villa, except older. Right.
Yeah, in my current state of headache, I can't read the writing that small. So
Okay. What we'll do is
I tried to, but I can't concentrate on it.
Okay, well I'll do it like I'll read it out a bit as well. How about that?
Okay.
Do you want to read it as Aurak?
No.
Okay. Yeah, it actually brings up the thing of what you complained about in the series. Interesting people being written out.
Yeah, I mean, they do that pretty consistently.
Not a particularly alien name, Gustav. It says something weird here. Oh. Ava and Jenna's testosterone. Weird. I can see
thought
that.
you were going to read it.
Oh, if you want me to read it, okay. There we go. Right, okay. Because you have a headache. And, right, okay. Through a series of happy accidents, Solitary gave me the opportunity to create a new character that, hopefully, remains something of an enigma by the end of it. Gustav Nyron is a brilliant Aron scientist who would make the ideal candidate for Blake's crew. But, as Solitary ends, he is on his way back home. It happens several times during the television series. Potentially interesting resistance fighters were rescued from the Federation and whisked away on the Liberator, never, well, rarely to be mentioned again. Obviously, the title of the show and the amount of plot needed to accommodate a regular cast that size dictated these decisions. But I got to wondering, what if one of them stayed for just a little while and had a couple of adventures on the way? Then my wonderings took hold and gave Nyron a backstory that is fully explained in another script, Wolf, which is written and hopefully will be recorded at some point. If it isn't, then only a handful of us will ever know what some of the lines in Solitary mean, and dear old Gustav will remain an enigma. All fans of Blake 7 back in the day had their favourite characters. Of course we did. I'll say that again with different intonation. All fans of Blake 7 back in the day had their favourite characters. Of course we did. And I confess that I was a Villa and Callie man. Michael Keaton's witty, rounded performance as Villa gave us a welcome relief from Blake, Avon, and Jenna's testosterone, and Jan Chappell's brittle Callie was mesmerising. Villa and Callie were, in a way, the outcasts of the crew in my eyes, and it's no coincidence that Gustav Nyron is drawn to them more than the others. Of course, I watched the first season of the television series to prepare for Solitary, and was reminded what a stunning beginning it had, with its visions of brainwashing, torture, and corruption. I hope that my script will reflect a little of that darkness, and that Villa's wit and lightness of touch serves to highlight the truly dangerous world that the Seven are living in. Alas, our wonderful train service scuppered my chance to hear Solitary being recorded. Oh, for a teleporter bracelet. Moat Studios, Jenna put me down. Musical sting as Fairs materializes. We see the horror on his face as he realizes that Jenna's put him down 3 miles away. He's got to break through several security posts to reach the moat, and lunch has already started. As I write these notes, I've heard just one tantalizing extract on the Big Finish website, and of course, Michael is amazing. I can't wait to hear the whole thing. Nigel Fairs, November 2011. And then there's something here about if you want to read a novel.
Well, he doesn't lack for confidence, but I disagree with him that this Gustav guy is that interesting a character.
Yeah, I also disagree with the way he characterizes, like the way he described Jenna's testosterone. Jeff may be thinking, I wish.
Yeah. I mean, she had flashes of that, but yeah, they wimpified her too often.
Yeah, what I would have put in
Which
is
is
like
that
Blake.
sounded like from the documentary is part of the reason why she left the show is
Oh yeah,
like a lot of female characters, the writers didn't seem to know what to do with her, and kind of, as an actress, she got bored of doing what they had her do.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
With Kelly, it was maybe a little bit more. They gave her more to do, but it was sort of like they would remember every several episodes that she was supposed to be telepathic, and then they would somehow make a plot that had something to do with that. And then the rest of the time, she was pretty generic too.
I think I have a hypothesis about what went wrong in Blake 7.
About what?
A hypothesis about what went wrong in terms of the things that you're bringing up. I think it's because with Doctor Who, you can have, because the stories are so separate from each other, it's easier to have these writers that only have a little bit of interaction with the show, because it's like they're coming up with their own thing. Whereas, as you know, on American series, the people that write for the series, it has many different writers, but they're all like in-house writers, aren't they? Whereas the writers for this show, when they brought in other writers, they're outside the show.
I don't think that's true of every American television show, but I'd say some of them it's true. I mean, we've already experienced a few homicides that were written by outside writers. So, it does happen. But I would say, yeah, probably more often than not, there's a writing staff that stays, as together as they can. I guess some shows it changes more than others over the years, and you can usually tell the difference between a show that keeps the same writing staff and one that changes more often in terms of how much the show changes or is kind of all over the place over time. I think with soap operas you can see that because there's ones that have had more consistent writing staffs, and those tend to be more consistent with the characters. And the ones when you see characters acting what seems like wildly out of character, it's usually because they've got new writers or they're changing writers and they don't really know the characters as well.
I think what you had in this era is that you might have had a lot of NT writers who weren't necessarily the best at character, and they might not have known how to write women. Whereas in other genres, there might not be as many NT writers, there might be more feeling writers, and we're better at it.
Because to me, actually, what you said about Doctor Who, the best Doctor Who's were that wasn't the case about that they were separate from everything else. They were usually ones that did have some continuity to them and thread together things from previous stories.
Well, what I mean is, in your criticism that you would like to have seen these characters carry on, well, I mean, I like season 2. Season 2 is my favourite season, but I've been reading that, I read a few months ago, is that they found season 2 very hard to do because they had to coordinate with these writers that weren't on staff to work in elements of the overall arc plot about trying to find Star One. And so they found that, and they personally themselves like to have the separate episodes in season 3. But I liked season 2. I liked the bringing together. Yes, there were a couple of few dud episodes in there, but I like the art plot of Star One.
Yeah, I mean, did they do that because they This didn't feel like that Chris Boucher, for instance, could handle writing as much, because it sounded like from, the documentary stuff that for the first season, Terry Nation had sort of done the outline of everything, but that Boucher did a whole lot of filling in stuff. So I'm wondering if that was like a network decision, like the BBC said, we need to get more writers involved, or whether or not that was a choice by the actual producers to do it that way. But anyway, that's that's probably a subject for another.
Yeah. They brought in other writers. As we know, Chris Boucher's biggest strength is dialogue. It might not be. Yeah, but he's writing good scripts as well. I mean, it's tricky. I think it's just this idea of just the coordination with these writers, where if you want these things that are following on, you need a greater level of contact with the writers. And it's like I've read things where it's like certain episodes were out of order and had to be changed, and it's just a level of, it's like when you're commissioning a certain, I mean, I don't know what it may have happened. Would it have been like where, because as you know, what happened with the Doctor is people would contact the BBC and say, hey, I've got an idea for Doctor Who. It's like a synopsis of it, and then they would commission them.
I didn't actually know.
Pardon?
I said I didn't actually know that, but
oh right, because it's in the Doctor Who handbooks.
Well, I mean, I knew lots of different writers had, but I didn't know that writers came to them with.
Yeah, that's how it was.
I just figured the BBC had their stable of writers that they went to.
No.
But anyway,
no, it was really weird.
Yeah, I would say for this one that starts out about like a 7 or 8, and then has a very disappointing ending of about like a 3 or so. So if I average those, it's somewhere around 4.5 or 5, something like that.
Right. Well, let's have a look at a little bit of context, folks. And that would put it. Compared to that, because I did a ranking of Jeff's worst stories, so it puts it about here, like just near the top of the bottom third. So it shows you how much he dislikes these other ones.
Yeah.
Like Warlord got a 1.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was nothing in this that, just made me be like, oh, come on, this is terrible. There wasn't any moments like that. There was just, I mean, there might have been a couple moments where I was like, that's a little too much of that. Like I was saying, the I don't even know what to call it because I don't remember the lines, but the sort of like audio effects they were doing on the voices with people yelling at each other or whatever. Like I was just like, all right, time to knock that off. But but it wasn't like anything where I was like, oh man, I'm sorry I listened to that. It wasn't that bad. It was just mediocre, I think is a good word.
What did you think of Michael Keating's performance?
I mean, he was good as usual. I mean, he's usually obviously by the time he's doing these, I mean, he played the character. I don't know where this was in the order of making new ones. How many he had done before that, but he obviously still can play the character, go right back into it. So doesn't have any problem with that. And his lines are all believable. The lines aren't that great.
Yes, that's right. Because that's one of the things I notice in these audios is that you can tell when Chris Boucher's not doing the dialogue.
Yeah.
Right. So, folks, I think that is about it. We have wrung all the review water from this cloth of an episode. Whatever that means. This rag of an episode. All the critical juice out. Right, so it's bye from me.
Bye-bye.
Right.